Hello and welcome to another D&D Stories. I'm your host, TheWriter. This is a show where I sit here and regale you with all the tabletop gaming stories and remember when something cool happens. So today, we will begin the adventures of Helga Farfenkugger, a cleric that I played not too long ago for my very first player experience of D&D 5th edition, which I am not actually very fond of. I like Pathfinder and 3.5 more, but that's neither here nor there. Let's stick to the story, shall we? Now imagine, if you will, a great and bountiful farming land with a budding town barely 20 years old, surrounded by wooden fort walls. You know, when they cut down trees and they put all the trunks next to each other and they sharpen the tops, kind of like that. A very small town. Less than 50 buildings, been there for 20 years, surrounded by corn, beans, squash, anything that they can grow out of that particular set of land. To the north is the Whitewood, a beautiful birch forest. It's all, white wood, so it's birch trees. The nearest city is miles and miles away. It's very quiet. It's a farming community. It's a logging community. They send cut down birch trees to the nearest city for money. They grow all their own food. It's a peaceful and prosperous young community with all young couples that came out here to start this new place, to lay a claim to the land and, by the salt of their brow, prosper and build their new town of Northway. Now, coming up the road, we have our main character, Helga Farfenkugger, a cleric of Tristilian, who is a homebrew harvest god, or agriculture god. She's not really like a cleric of smash your face with a hammer, or a cleric of vengeance, or a cleric of justice, or anything like that. She's a cleric of an agriculture god, so she's more along the lines of a folk hero. She's a beautiful young dwarven lady, red hair, freckles, a bust every man looks at. She's got a dark green cape and chainmail. She wears a shield on her back, and she's got a hammer on her hip to defend herself. But, not a lot of action happens out here. She can make it rain if they miss a few rains to help the crops. She can deliver a baby if the midwife is busy. She can serve as a nurse. In the meantime, with her budding clerical powers, she wanders up and down the roads of the area, helping anybody who needs help and just kind of shepherding the community to do right unto each other. So a level 1 dwarven cleric, if you will. Somebody that, everybody knows her name. They all hold her in relatively high regard. She's not in charge of anybody, but, if you break your arm, you could find Helga and she could fix your arm. Or if your crops are withering, you could call on Helga and she'll make it rain over your crops so that you don't lose a whole harvest or a whole crop come harvest season. So more along the lines of a folk hero. Now, Helga arrives in the I guess, small establishment that is Northway, and a woman asks her to take a basket of supplies into the Whitewood to see Old Man Crowley. And Old Man Crowley, he was a denizen of Northway, but he got old and grouchy, and he just wanted to be out on his own. But they still take care of him. They still send him food and animal skins and stuff, so he doesn't die out there. He just wants some peace and quiet. And Helga is, of course, happy to oblige. She takes the basket, feeling a bit like a Little Red Riding Dwarf, to go off to Old Crowley's and deliver, it's like meat and fish and, nails, things that he couldn't make for himself. And Old Man Crowley grows herbs, so she'll no doubt get a bunch of herbs in her basket to bring back. And, it's a delivery quest, but being a level 1 cleric, you can't be out there saving the world or you'd get smushed. So I was really happy with the idea of Helga Farfenkugger. You're not saving the world, you're not destroying enemy strongholds, you're not declaring war on goblin villages, you're helping the farmers, you're looking out for the little guy, It's like when a superhero comes along and you're like, no, I don't need to save the world. I just look after this tiny little area and, look out for the little guy, So with her basket of fish and nails and animal skins and stuff, she sets off for the White Wood. And, this is, again, just farmland. There's a nearby mountain that brings down precipitation enough for rain and stuff. There's not a lot of magical creatures or anything out here. The most interesting thing you could run into would be like a stray wolf. And, rolling the fate check during travel, we don't run into a wolf. Helga does, however, see a stag. A white stag, which is a sign of good luck to those that follow the Church of Tristilian. So she gets like an invisible buff on her before she even arrives at Old Man Crowley's house. And she arrives and she gives him his basket of stuff, and he of course has a big bag of several kinds of herbs ready to stick in her little picnic basket thing that she's got. And she stays and she checks on him. She has tea. She makes it rain over his herb garden so that things stay moist and nice. And, just a very small town hero, very humble Helga Farfenkugler. And after, packing the herbs away and putting the basket away because she doesn't want to have like one hand taken up in case anything might happen on her way back. So she starts to head back to Northway. And she hears some guys, like, struggling through the woods, like, in such a way that it's clear they don't know how to follow paths or how to stay out of sticker bushes or anything like that. They're trying to struggle in a straight line in an area where going in a straight line is not always the best idea, because there might be poison ivy, there might be, again, sticker bushes or devil's walking sticks or anything that's in your way that's going to make your life miserable. It's like they can't even barely see the path that they're on. Being the maternal, upright folk hero sort, Helga wanders over to try and help them, picking her way amongst the foliage. And as soon as they spot her, she raises a hand, "Hail, travelers!" One of them pulls a dagger, and the other one takes off running. And the one that stays, starts trying to fight his way through the foliage, and Helga just kind of looks at him oddly for a moment, like he's going to come over here and kick her ass for whatever reason. So she kind of reaches behind herself, she pulls out the little metal buckler she's got, she unhooks the warhammer from her hip. He's like, "You okay? Can I help you?" And he charges over to do battle with her. And he's this yellow-skinned, flat-faced fellow, almost like a snake. Like his eyes are a little bit too round, and his nose is a little bit too flat. He's dressed in like these culty, like Eastern-style robes with like a black cape and a red hood. And, he's been spotted, and he can't have anybody witnessing him travel across the land, whatever it is that he's doing. So he's got to take this dwarven lady out. Helga Farfenkugler is no pushover, however. So one-on-one, a cleric, of course, does battle with him and overpowers him entirely. Not for the first 5 rounds or so, because the D20 I was throwing that day was like 5, 7, 1, 1, and this bizarre dance of people, he couldn't get through her armor because she's wearing chainmail, and she couldn't hit him because she just kept swinging oddly. It had been so long since Helga had to take up her dwarven warhammer that she was not doing a good job at bonking him over the head, until finally I switched D20s and, threw the first one in the microwave, and through the next D20, 20, maximum damage, critical, maximum damage plus an extra roll. Bam! Knock him over the head. He falls unconscious. So, of course, Helga takes his black culty dagger. Is it magical? Yes. What kind of magic's on it? Conjuration. I go, conjuration on a dagger? It's like this black dagger of like glass and onyx, and it's got this weird this weird red sparkle about it. So she wraps it up in some cloth so she doesn't cut herself, and she stuffs it in her bag. And she gets some rope and she ties it around his waist and ties him to a tree and just kind of like pats him down. Like, is this guy an assassin? Is he here to cause trouble? And, you know, his food rations are foreign and strange, and the coin that's in his pocket is of no denomination she's ever seen before. And she pulls back his hood. He's almost snake-like. He's very foreign. He's not a race that she's ever seen before. And, you know, given that Northway has, you know, humans and dwarves, and Old Man Crowley is an elf, and there's a couple of halflings, you know, Northway is a diverse town, but this is not a humanoid race that she has ever seen before. He is from quite far away, apparently. So, I'm sorry, I've got my notes here. So she knocks one out and ties him to a tree. Doesn't kill him, because that's not really in her nature, unless she has to, because she's a harvest god cleric. So, you know, if she can avoid just freaking caving your skull in, then she will. But she ties the first one to the tree. The other guy took off, however, and since, again, he was trying to go in a straight line, he left a nice, easily trackable path. And, of course, Helga, being a cleric, has no ranks in like, track or survival or anything like that. But she knows these woods fairly well. I mean, this is her turf. She goes back and forth to Old Man Crowley's all the time, so she kind of knows this area and is able to follow this guy out into a portion of the woods that she doesn't visit very often, but, you know, she might check to see if anybody's lost in the woods, or you know, a nice autumn day she might go to walk amongst the trees and meditate, you know, naked by a stream somewhere. And she comes up to this hole in the ground that leads underground. Not like a cave, it's not stone, and it's not in like a cliff face, it's just like a place that had been dug out and like hammered down so that it wouldn't collapse, ramping down into the underground. And I'm sitting there thinking, well, you know, he clearly went in there, so, you know, I've got shield, and I've got a couple of health potions, and I've got my hammer, and I'm about as prepared as I'm going to be for a level 1 cleric traveling alone, because I didn't mention this was a duet game. There were no other players. It was just me. My DM was teaching me to play 5th edition, and I decided I didn't like it, but I did the whole campaign here, so again, neither here nor there. But I'm by myself, so I got to be extra careful. And Helga kind of like checks her braid, you know, because her braid goes like down to the top of her butt, and that was like one of her vices in life, was that she was always checking her hair to make sure it wasn't getting wild or looking crazy. So like before she opened a door, before she did something dangerous, she would always like, I straighten my ponytail, and then I go I straighten my braid, and I go in. So Helga straightens her dwarven braid, and she hefts her shield, and she hefts her warhammer, and she goes down into the unknown. And there are torches down there. It's not dark. And she kind of peers around, like expecting kobolds or expecting goblins, or, you know, the guy she caught was kind of culty looking, so maybe they've made a deal with some subterranean race. Turns out, no, not even close. Helga enters, and she finds a man-made structure, and it is a temple. There is a temple in the white wood that she did not know about. And she looks around with dwarven stone cunning, so you can kind of get details about a structure if you're a dwarf just by looking at the brick and mortar that it is that put it together. The way the stones are laid and the way they are aged, this place is over 2,000 years old. Now, if you remember, Northway, the town that she looks after, is only 20 years old. So this temple has been here for ages. And the front wall, before you go in to like the antechambers and stuff, is just a mirror. And she checks the inscription. It's in common. You know, make sure you look presentable before you step onto holy ground. And that kind of makes Helga hesitate because, she is the cleric of Tristilian, the agriculture god. This is clearly some other god's holy ground. So she doesn't want to get smitten with lightning. I don't want the DM to send an angel down to kick my ass for doing something wrong. So Helga wanders over. There's like a well nearby. She grabs a handkerchief. She scrubs her face real quick. She makes sure there's no dog poop on her sandals. She, fixes her cloak, fixes her hair, kind of swifts it back, Because when you lead the holy life, going on to somebody else's holy ground, it's like an ambassador visiting a country that's really suspicious of you. You gotta play nice. So Helga is trying to play by the rules that are put in front of her. So that other culty guy ran in here, but this is not like an evil god's temple. This is, she inspected things for a while and was trying to kind of figure out what god this was. And there were so many tree roots and like earthy tones and greens painted along the door frame and stuff. This is clearly almost like an elven god or a fertility god or a forest god or something like that. This had been here for quite a while, and this temple was hidden underground. So perhaps when this was made, the worship of this god may have been taboo. So like 2,000 years ago, it wasn't such a good idea to publicly be a Christian. So, you get the Jesus fish, in the catacombs under the city. That you see the Jesus fish and you go, oh, there's a place of worship nearby. Well, whoever lived there 2,000 years ago built this temple underground for a private worshiping site. If these people were being persecuted for their religion. So she doesn't know what god it is, but it's not hers, so she's being very careful. And, if one guy ran in here, chances are there are a few others. I'm hoping not too many, because if Helga runs into 4 or 5 guys, then, they could leave her naked by the roadside, and that would be game over. And Helga goes in through the front door, or the front entrance area, and she comes to an antechamber where there are 2 sets of double doors, left side and right side. And the DM suddenly goes, you hear, the fast approach of many feet. And Helga runs up to be behind the doors when they come open, but not up in the corner. So when she hides herself behind the door, they fly open. She gets pancaked against the wall, and 2 guys run out. They go up the tunnel and away. And Helga kind of wipes her brow, she could have been, run straight over there, but they ran away. Does she chase them or does she keep going in? And, I kind of toss the coin and I go, okay, I'm going to keep going in. If this is a place of interest for these fellows who will stab a woman, sure as look at her, I should know a bit more about it. So Helga leans and looks, and it's like a proper chapel down there. It's a high ceiling. There's ancient stone pews, mosaics showing off all kinds of plant life. There's tree roots hanging from the ceiling. The sconces have torches that are lit. So somebody's home. There's a dais up front with a pulpit. There's a few ancient remains of old holy books dusting and molding in the corners on bookshelves that have seen better days. And in the half-light, she can see that there are 3 more of these culty guys in robes standing around a wok. And a wok is like a big bowl that you toss things in when you're cooking. But they're throwing sparkly dust in there, and they throw an animal bone in, and they're doing their culty shit while she walks in. Bah, beer, bah, 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 beer, bah. And, and the symbols on their robes and the symbols on the walls do not match. So something bad is happening here. And as she approaches, they're very busy. They've got their backs pretty much to her while they're doing this. And she leans, and Helga sees that they are burning some sort of woodland creature, whether it be a treant or a wood nymph, something magical in nature. And it's long since curled up into ash in the wok, dead because of the flames. and their chanting is getting louder and more triumphant as they get up there. And like at this point, Helga's had enough. Like their culty bullshit in the middle of this temple, in the middle of her territory, has gone on long enough. So she pulls her warhammer, she pulls her shield up, and she's like, "All right, stop what you're doing!" And she rushes up there to basically like bicycle kick with her warhammer, like yo-yo around the world, to hit that walk and flip it over like a turtle shell. And I used the D&D 5th edition has something called Inspiration, where you can roll 2d20s and take the better check. So I end up with like a 17, which is more than enough to flip this walk over. So ash and fire sprays all over the place. Thankfully doesn't catch anything on fire. And these three culty guys, one of them is very young and frightened of her when she dashes in out of the shadows. Two of them are much older and not so much afraid. But they're like, "You are too late, we are already finished with our summoning ritual." And they pull the same dagger. Each one of them pull the same dagger that Helga got off the first guy, and they just reach up with both hands and stab themselves in the stomach and then rip their intestines to one side. They like hurry-carry themselves right in front of her and fall over dead, all three of them. And Helga's like, "Oh my Tristilian," and she looks around like, are they going to jump back up as zombies or something? But their deaths completed the ritual, and they jump, and their like spiritual energy leaps out in the form of mournful ghosts, and it tears open the fabric of reality over the walk, which has been flipped over already, but I guess was already done with its use. And the fabric of reality rips open to the elemental plane of fire, and a fire elemental wanders out. 2 arms, 2 legs, a great big fiery head. And it's basically just, living humanoid-shaped fire. It's not solid. And Helga kind of looks around herself. There's too much in here that's made of wood. There's tree roots hanging from the ceiling. There's bookshelves. There's ancient, probably long-forgotten texts, and plenty of stuff to burn here. The white wood is outside. She can't let it get to the surface, or it's going to be a bad day. So, of course, roll initiative, and she runs up to do battle with this thing just as the portal, sucks closed behind it. Their intention must have been to, summon it to this temple, have it burn the temple down, and then, wander outside to burn down the whitewood for whatever reason. But Helga's not going to allow this. So she rushes forward to do battle with this thing, and they go after each other after a while. Or they go at each other immediately. And they, fighting a fire with a hammer is not an especially great idea. So, of course, Helga's, downing her healing potions. It runs its fiery claws across her shield, sprays sparks in all directions, like you're freaking hitting an anvil. And, striking iron when it's hot, and it just sprays sparks in all directions. She manages the critical hit and, pats out one of its arms, doing enough damage to just, psh, and it's got one less arm. Until finally she manages to just out-DPS this thing. It's hard to even describe, a dwarven cleric fighting, fire with arms and legs. I don't even know what to describe that as. But she eventually does enough damage to put the fire elemental out. And a silence comes across the Whitewood Temple. And she looks about, and she goes to check the cultists, because the fire elemental doesn't leave anything behind. It's living fire. It doesn't have a backpack or anything. So she goes to check all the cultists. They've got the same weird rations, the same weird coins, the same black culty daggers that she leaves them where they are, because if she cuts herself on this and it summons a demon or something, that's why when she did the detect magic on the first dagger, which is in her backpack, it said conjuration, because apparently if you kill yourself with it in great enough numbers, it summons a fucking fire elemental. So conjuration daggers, woo. Ugh. She does, however, find a map, And marked on this map are locations of the temples of other gods. Tristilian is not among them, but just in this area. And she sees, there's a temple to such and such, like nature god or fertility god. I've forgotten the name of it. It was a homebrew god that was on this map, but Northway, the town that she looks after, was not on this map. So apparently these guys are from far away, and their maps are not very up to date. So their people have not been here for a very long time. So Keswick, which is the nearby city, and then like Southport, which is the capital, are both marked on this map. But the smaller settlements are not out there. It just leaves the region as a blank slate. So whoever gave them this map was not up to date on all their information, but it must have been a much older map because this temple that nobody knew about was on it, so marked with an X. So perhaps they were going from temple to temple, summoning fire elementals. I hope not. That would suck, especially in places like Whitewood, where it would just like walk around touching trees and catching things on fire. But Helga kind of pockets the map, and she decides that she needs to check the place out further because, if all the cultists are gone, there could be a supply room somewhere, if there are like ancient texts that need to be recovered or anything like that. And she finds a supply room, of course, and she finds, holy water. Holy water never goes bad, so she pockets that. She finds ancient texts. They're not like the holy book of Tristilian or anything, but hey, somebody might want these or pay money for them, so pocket that. There's some old odds and ends and priest robes, but not her religion. She shouldn't wear those. At the same time, she finds a hidden panel in the floorboards. This supply room actually had a hidden like undercroft in it, so she uses the back of her hammer and pries away one of the floorboards and finds a treasure chest. And against all better modes of thinking playing D&D, that chests can be trapped or locked or anything like that, she reaches in and she grabs it and she hauls it back up into the supply room. God, this thing's heavy. And she flips it open, and inside is a silver warhammer, and it was called the Mason's Hand. It's a silver +1 warhammer, and once per day, the user could cast Cure Light Wounds on themselves. So it's like a D8 of health. Silver is great. It's great against werewolves, vampires, undead, certain incorporeal things. Silver is a wonderful thing to have your weapon made out of. So this was a major find, a major, really shiny artifact that she found in somebody else's temple. But, we're kind of splitting hairs there. It didn't say like the such and such hammer of the fertility god, and then Tristilian gets pissed off because you're waving a hammer around that belongs to this other church. It was just a silver warhammer with a blessing on it. So that replaces the hell out of Helga's regular warhammer. So she puts that away, and she's got this silver shiny one that just kind of sparkles when she waves it around. And oh, isn't it shiny? And in the meantime, while she's admiring her new find, she finds that a part of the wall, which is mostly earth and rock, is false. And she gives it a good shove, and she finds a second chapel. There's a secondary worship area outside of this supply room. And she goes, well, maybe this was like where all the priests hung out, or where like the cardinals or the upper echelons of the church would hang out when nobody was in for regular service, if they were like copying holy texts or something and didn't want to be disturbed. So she kind of sticks her head in. There are no torches here, so those culty guys didn't find this place. So she goes and she grabs a torch, and she kind of leads with the torch in one hand and the hammer in the other hand, putting her shield on her back. And this one, behind the pulpit, beyond the pews, beyond the dais, like behind where the guy would stand and give service, is a stained glass window, and it's lit. And Helga kind of scratches her chin and she goes, there's a stained glass window underground that's lit up. And it takes her all of 5 seconds to think, oh, there must be something behind it to make it light up like that, like a fire or a glowing bioluminescent mushroom or something. There is a space behind it. So she checks the pews to see if anybody left their purse there or something, anything of value. And then she wanders past the pulpit and she checks it. There's the moldy remains of a holy book. There's nothing there to salvage. And she starts knocking on the walls with her fist and then tapping on the walls with her hammer. And of course, eventually she finds another hidden panel to lead behind the stained glass window. And who should be in this hidden area behind a hidden area but a dwarf, tied up and gagged. And apparently these culty guys had been back there and left him in the dark. So Helga thought, oh, they haven't been here. Sure enough, they had. And they must have left this guy to die, or they must have left this guy here for ransom or something. But he was all tied up. He was unarmed, just kind of laying on his side, struggling against his ropes and stuff. And Helga's like, oh my God, hang on, I'm coming over there. And she unties this guy. His name is Orthic. He's a ranger. And he has been tracking these cultists for quite some time out of the blah-de-blah mountains to the west as they travel across the region, desecrating other temples and things like that. So his ego is a little bit hurt. Not only did he have to be saved, as a bounty hunter, my gosh, his ego must be shattered. But, he is saved by a woman. Oh, no. And stuff like that, and she rolls her eyes and smacks the back of his head before handing him his crossbow and getting him his armor so he can be a little bit less naked. They basically kind of stripped him down to get all of his valuables and left him there to starve to death. So she gives him one of her rations, and they go through his bags to see if anything's missing. Nothing's missing. They just kind of hung it on a hook out of his reach somewhere and tied him to a piece of furniture and then threw the furniture on his side so he couldn't get up. But Orthic said that there were 6 cultists, and Helga kind of does some thinking in her head. Well, I saw 3 of them kill themselves, 2 of them ran out, and 1 of them is unconscious and on the side of the road somewhere because of me. So that accounts for all 6 of them, thank goodness. If there were more, it might suck, because there are only 2 of us. And Orthic goes, well, I have been charged to hunt these guys down before they do any real damage to any of the religious sites across this region. And Helga goes, well, now he has done wrong. They have done wrong by me, and they attacked me in the woods, and they summoned a fire elemental from the elemental plane of fire in the middle of a temple, in the middle of the Whitewood, in the middle of my farm territory that I take care of and shepherd the farmers about in. So this has now become my problem, Orthic. And Orthic's like, well, then we should travel together, and together we will hunt them down, take them out, bring them to justice, whatever it calls for. You say 3 of them are already dead. Good. And Helga kind of shows him the map, and they kind of confer for a while. 2 of them took off running. You've got 1 tied up. Maybe he's still there. Stuff like that. And they catch up while he's eating his fill. That they haven't been feeding me. Have you got any water on you? Yes. Here's some water. Here's some holy water. That's even better for you. Not really, but he is much revived by the food and drink, and gets his crossbow, and he's got his short sword, he's got his own pack and supplies. Clearly he is a dwarf fit for travel. He is a ranger, but he has no animal companion, so perhaps it was lost or killed by these cultists. I don't think that ever came to light, at least not that I remember. But he was by himself, hunting these 6 guys, so he's got a pair on him. And the 2 of them decide that they will team up to take out the cult that they encountered in the White Wood. And that is where we kind of left off for a little while, so that is where I will leave off for today. I hope you enjoyed that story. Leave me that thumbs up if you would, and I will see you guys on the next D&D Stories. Keep gaming. Hey guys, thanks for watching. I really love telling D&D stories, and I also really love eating food. So if you'd like to toss a couple of gold pieces into this humble bard's hat, be sure to check out my Patreon. If you enjoyed this story, be sure to hit the like button as well. And if you'd like access to maps, character art, and channel updates too, check out the D&D Stories Facebook. Keep gaming!